All right. Good morning, everyone. So, if you are at home today, if you are a part of cohort one, then this is the video that you should be watching today. We're going to go over just a little bit about what are strings, how do they work. I know they were a big part of your summer work, but just as a quick memory refresher, so that way we're a little bit more familiar with them. Because next week we're going to start to talk about strings a lot more, get into a little bit more about how they're useful, what can we use them for, and stuff like that. So today is just meant as a quick intro / memory refresher on what is a string and how does it work and what can I do with them. So if we take a look here, a string is just a sequence of characters. That's it, right? It's defined by putting double quotes around whatever that sequence is. But unlike integers and doubles, strings are objects, meaning that they come with a set of methods. Now, the easiest thing, and I know I talked about this in class yesterday, is something like substring, right? Substring is a method that comes with a string. Dot length is a method that comes with a string. All of these things you don't need to write yourself. They're built into the object. So you can use them whenever you want, and they always work the same way. The other cool thing, is that when you create a string, the name is not stored with the string itself. So to give you some context to that, with an integer, if I call an integer x and I say x equals 2, the name x and the actual value 2 are stored in the same place in your computer's memory. However, when you create a string, all it does with the variable name is create a reference to the actual place in memory. And so what's nice about that is that if I change the name of the string, but it references the same place in memory, I don't lose that sequence of characters, right? With an integer, if I change the name, I lose everything, right? It wipes that place in memory and creates a new spot for the new variable because the name and the value are stored together. So if you think of this, think of it like a bank account, right? On your phone, you can view your bank account. You can see how much money is in your bank account. But if you delete the app off your phone, you don't lose all of your money, right? You didn't also delete your money because that app is just referencing another place that's storing your money. So I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please let me know. We're going to talk more about it next week. So I hope it's at least making a little bit of sense. Now we get to a very important vocabulary word. And that's really what it is, because the concept isn't too hard. And that's concatenation. All it means is to put two strings together, right? So if I use the plus sign, if you look under the first example at the print command, the plus sign is just going to take the second string and put it right at the back end of the first string, which is why this prints hello, brother Tom, right? After the hello in string message, there's a space. So it takes brother Tom and puts it right at the end of that space and prints the whole thing. The other important thing, if we look at the second example, is that you don't need to have two strings initialized in order to do it, right? I can just put the plus sign in the print command and then put the second string that I want, notice in double quotes, and it's not a big deal. So this will be very helpful if you want to print things, especially in coding bat exercises. If you take strings as parameters and you want to put them together in some way, shape, or form, we just use the plus sign. Now, this is a thing that I want you to go ahead and I want you to try on your own, right? So I want you to pause the video here. I want you to open up Replit or BlueJ or whatever you're using. And I want you to type these three examples into three separate print commands and see what happens. Right? I want you to write down what happens because we'll talk about it. But I want you to kind of see what happens here for yourself instead of me telling you. So take a moment, pause the video here and go give that a shot. And then we'll talk about it next week. Okay, now, the next thing we get to are escape characters. Escape characters are really, really helpful because they allow you to condense multiple print statements into just one. Now, what I mean by that is, if you notice, right, or I shouldn't say they allow us to condense multiple print statements into one. The \n does that, but overall, they allow us to insert characters that otherwise would be a little bit more difficult to do, right? So if I want to insert a quotation mark into a string, that would be kind of hard to do because typically they either open a string, meaning they tell, Java this is the beginning, or they close it. They tell Java that, hey, that's the end, right? So if I want to insert a quotation mark, I just put a backslash in front of it and then put the quotation mark. \n works like a new print line statement where it will put whatever comes after it onto the next line. \t tabs over, and then the double backslash actually lets you insert a backslash. So if we want to take a look at what this actually looks like, if I take a look at this print statement, right, the room was full of animals, : \n, now that's going to put whatever comes after that onto the next line. So when you look at the output, that's why the dogs is onto the next line. It's tabbed over because of the \t that's in front of dogs. Then I get another \n that's going to put whatever comes afterwards on the next line. And then we get the tab over on cats, and that \n puts everything on the next line. And the tabs chimpanzees over. And now that last \n means if I was going to have anything that comes after that, it would be below chimpanzees in my output. So escape characters are really helpful just because they allow you to condense what would have been 4 print statements here into 1. Now, these are not something that is super stressed on the AP exam. I have seen them show up, but it's not something where you need to memorize it and it's everything, right? It is somewhat important, but I've maybe seen it on 1 or 2 multiple choice questions over the past couple of years, and that's it. Now, determining the length of a string, I'm not going to take a lot of time to go over this just because this was also on your summer work, but I want you to think, right? We talked about how .length is a method, and the giveaway is the double parentheses because that means it's looking for a parameter, but in this particular case, .length doesn't take any parameters. So what kind of return type would .length have? Think about that and write it down. Now we get to the practice for today. So I want you to take a look at this, and then I want to absolutely 100% delete it, right? What I want you to do today for CodingBat, I do want you to go on CodingBat, and I want you to go to string 2, and I'll put this on the classroom post as well. String 2 is going to ask you to use some loops, so it'll help us get a little bit more familiar with loops, because we're going to talk about those next week as well. And I want you to pick 4 different examples. Okay, you can turn in your code as well as the name of the problem that it goes along with, so that way I can give you some feedback. And that'll be it for today. All right, guys, enjoy your weekend, and I will see you all next week. Bye.